Hey everyone, I'm Ava DuVernay, and just want to tell you a little bit about my new friend Naomi. So Naomi is pretty popular. She lives in the Pacific Northwest in this little town called Portiswego. She has a really cool crew of friends. She's a snazzy dresser. She loves comic books. In fact, she really loves Superman comic books. One day, something crazy happens in her town, and she finds out why she loves comic books so much and why she loves Superman specifically. And it's something that blows her mind and is more seismic and cosmic than anyone could ever imagine. Don't believe everything you think. That's what Naomi's about. Check it out.
Better hurry, bell rings in 15.
If you let me get a car, you wouldn't have to worry about me being late. What's happening? Something happened to me. I could hear it, Annabelle.
Hear what?
Everything. You were there that day. Do you know what it was?
It may have something to do with people like us.
What are you talking about?
What you call an icon living?
Are you a superhero?
No.
I need you to listen to the vision. All your verses.
We need to get you ready.
I'm about to see them in the kitchen.
I found the girl. Her powers are beginning to manifest.
I'm about to do it way different. I am just an icon.
You are exceptional.
I am just an icon living. Icon living. I am just an I am just an icon living.
Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, for our final roundtable of the year, we are talking to the terrific cast and creators responsible for the upcoming CW show, Naomi, written by one of my favorite people, Ava DuVernay. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to our facilitator, who is going to handle things today, Ms. Kaci Woods, Cup of Soul in Philadelphia. She's joined by AAFCA member Carolyn Hines in Toronto, Matthew Haynes in New York, Dana Abercrombie in New York, Mercedes Springer in Atlanta, Sharonda Williams in Atlanta, Rhonda Rasha Penrice in Atlanta, and Reginald Pounder in Chicago. I'm gonna let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
Hi guys, I'm Reggie Ponder out of Chicago, 91.1 FM. And in the show, Kaci's character, Naomi, is told that she's asking the wrong questions. So this is directed to Jill and Demain. And if anybody else wants to jump in, hint, hint, you can. What's the right question and what's the right answer?
Oh, it's a good question. What is the right question? So I think the right question has to do with asking more of the right questions, right? Which is a little bit of a sort of roundabout way of saying, you know, one thing Ava and I always talked about in terms of the theme of the show from sort of the very beginning that we've sort of tried to weave into the season is this idea of don't believe everything you think. And what we want is to sort of, through Naomi's journey, encourage people to ask different questions, interrogate why they believe certain things, why they assume things about certain people. And that's something we've sort of carried over throughout the season. So the right answer is to ask more questions, I think.
Demain?
I would agree with that. I think, you know, this character finding out she might not be who she thinks she is at a seminal point in her life. There's a lot of asking of who she really is and where she's really from. And I agree with Jill, it's asking more questions. When Jill and I first met on the phone and she told me it's not believing everything you think, I was like, oh, that's awesome. You know, because it challenges you to question your beliefs and why you believe them and who you got that information from and what that really means. And that's a big part of her journey.
Thank you, guys. I see nobody bid on my hint. Thank you. I really appreciate the show too. It's very, very interesting. Thanks again.
Hi, Karen. First, Here's What Happened in Karen Talks podcast. So this question is for Jill, Mouzam, Demain, and Kaci. So the interesting thing for me for this show is how Naomi is going to be discovering not only who she is, possibly as someone from another planet, but who she is with regards to her relationship to her parents and her friends. So it's a lot about how discovering your identity in different ways and different concepts. So can you guys all go into like how Naomi's going to find out who she is with relation to the people, especially the women in her lives, because I can see how this is going to affect the relationship with her parents, particularly her mother and also her friends. So just go into that a bit for me, please. Thank you.
I can start. Yeah, I think along the lines of exactly what Jill and Demain said, asking questions, it's also, the show also forces you to even think about who have you trusted all along and who can you begin to trust and not trust. And it's a lot about, I think the show forces Naomi to start stepping back from her comfort zone and rethinking about all of her relationships, what her parents said, what her friends said, and really forces her to make her decisions as her own person, which I think is what every, young person is trying to figure out, especially in this world with so much misinformation and everything. I think it's an opportunity where if your parents say one thing, if your friends say one thing, you have to step back and be like, wait, I know they've always had my best interest in heart, but do they always, So I think the show forces you to just think about, along the lines what Jill and Demain said, always think about where are they coming from, what biases did they grow up with, and how do I want to conduct myself in this world? And that's what the show really shows. I think everybody has different interests at heart, and a lot of us have Naomi's interest at heart, but Naomi has to always take that time and space to step back and think, but what do I want to do? What do I need to do to grow as a person? So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I completely agree with what Mouzam said. That was so beautifully put. I think being a teenager, and I started the show when I was 16, and Naomi is 16. So there's a lot I actually pulled for myself. It's crucial about asking that question, like, who am I? Like, I'm always discovering, especially crucially as a teenager, who I am, which I think is something that is very prevalent in the show. Naomi's realizing her hidden destiny, but she's also realizing who she wants to be surrounded with, who she wants about her friend group, and her relationship with her parents, especially. It's not an angsty relationship. She gets along with them extremely well, and they have a really special bond, and she was adopted when she was a baby. So she's been with them for so long, and they love her and they dote on her and she loves them. The story of Naomi is she's someone who loves and is loved. I don't think I can top either of those, but I'll add to them. Yeah, I mean, I think creatively, exactly what sort of Mouzam and Kaci said, and sort of from our perspective too, we've always thought about the show, Ava and I, as a coming of age story, right? That's told sort of within the superhero world, So in that regard, we're dealing with, these two sort of equally important parts of Naomi's life, right? Her teenage life and sort of her relationships with her parents and relationships with her friends, and sort of figuring out who she's going to become, while also sort of getting involved in this sort of like epic cosmic struggle. So the kind of push and pull between these two sides of her life and how Naomi balances that, really we think of sort of about, again, sort of within the umbrella of that coming of age story and what that looks like for every young woman who's growing up.
Crumpy from New York. I'm sorry, from the coalition. My question is more for Gil and for Kaci, or anyone who really wants to jump in. From the pilot episode, we kind of seen the comparisons you can make to Superman and his character. However, this is going to also deal with, being a Black woman or a Black teenager coming of age story. Can you talk about kind of separating the character from kind of the comparisons of Superman to more of diving into the identity, her identity of being not just a superhero, but that Black identity as well? It's going to be, I hope, within the show.
I mean, I can start it. I think that Naomi has always looked up to Superman. He's adopted like her. So I think that has also allowed her, when she was moving around so much when she was little, all the kids love Superman. So she's been able to gravitate towards him for a while. I think that there are some similarities between Naomi and Superman. If she's looked up to him for so long, of course, she's going to approach some situations in that way, knowing all the comics that she knows. But I think that there's also difference. Like she's first of all, starting like what you said, she's a Black girl who's a teenager. First of all, I think that is a huge part of the story just because she's a teenager. And so I think that there's definitely differences in the stories. And then also she handles things differently based on her environment, based on who her parents are. So I think that
they're similar, but they're very different because they're two very different characters. They go through different struggles. They are surrounded by different people. But I think you can see some of the little hints in there, kind of.
And I would just add to that too, on the Superman front, what you know, even I love so much that we think is so unique about the show, even from the jump, is this idea of like, when we meet Naomi in the pilot, like she is a Superman stan, you know what I mean? Like she's like all of us who like read comics and, you know, love these stories. And so to watch her go on this journey where she sort of eventually realizes that this like affection and this affinity she has for Superman actually is rooted in something much deeper, I think is going to be super fun for fans to watch, you know, just because it's reflective of certainly me. And I think, you know, hopefully a lot of other people who like the comics.
I think it's also great to kind of watch her navigate, without giving anything away, what it means to say, well, Superman's a superhero, but again, who am I? What does that make me? What are the different attributes I've given this superhero? And now suddenly I'm one. Am I one? Do I have the ability to do that? And watching that through the eyes of a young Black woman that's the show. That's what makes it so great, including watching Kaci bring that to life.
Hi, my name is Matt from Matthew V. Haynes over on YouTube. So that question goes directly straight into mine. It's a perfect way to segue to this. So this question is for Kaci. Naomi is such a huge Superman fan, huge comic book fan. And I grew up reading a ton of comic books, as you can see by my background. As a Black man growing up reading comic books, to be able to see characters of color read comic books is such a great thing. But that's one of the favorite things I love about her story. So is there anything in particular with Naomi that you really love about her character?
First of all, that's so beautiful that you grew up loving comics. I think there's so much that I love about Naomi. Jill, DeMane, and I, we could talk about Naomi forever. I love how she embraces so much that she loves comics and embraces the Superman. You see that especially in the pilot. She isn't shy to talk about her passion. Even if you don't like it, she's going to like it. And I think there's a lot of confidence in that. I also think that throughout the series, especially, she has this drive within her and this passion. When people keep telling her no, she's going to go and she's still going to do it. So I think she has this great drive and this great passion in her. And I've always, since I was auditioning, I've always just loved her confidence. I think that it's just so organic. And I think that she's not trying to be anyone else that she's not.
Hi, Kathy Woods, Couple Soul Show. This question is more for the gentlemen who are trying to help Naomi figure out who she is, but they go about it in a different way, like saying things like you're not asking the right questions and trying to get her to push out of her comfort zone because she thinks very much in logic. Everything is very black and white with her. At least that's what we're getting from the first episode. And you're essentially are asking her to think a little gray. So talk a little bit about what your role is in helping her discover and who she is. You're not exactly going like, oh, you're blah, blah, blah. You're like, I need you to use your brain and your feelings and think outside the box. And Cranston, you can go first.
Because she's a very, very, very special young lady. And I think she realizes that, but she doesn't. She's very smart. She's very well liked in her community, in her school and everything, but she has something so much bigger than that. And a lot of people are depending on her. And I think that throughout the journey, we don't want to throw all of this on her plate initially. It's almost like a maturation process that we put her through these tests. We want her to, handle these things in sections almost, because there's a couple of times where she does become overwhelmed and she's like, yesterday I was this and today I'm this and that, just imagine how that would feel. So we're very patient, but at times we do push and we want her to reach her full potential. And I think that's going to be a very exciting journey to watch as she uncovers and learns more, and she just evolves into Naomi, the superhero that we see in the comics. So,
what about you, Alexander? You kind of like show and prove. You cut out all the middle stuff. So, how do you feel like you're going to help her discover herself?
Well, I think the phrase that that kind of describes it as don't judge a book by its cover. And I always say that can go into, like, in a retrospect, you can go on either side of the spectrum, right? Because sometimes that book kind of exceeds your expectations, and sometimes, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know. But in Naomi's case, it far, you know, exceeds expectations. And D, I think, is he's a little bit terrified of her, you know, because he's like in this cocoon, doesn't want to be bothered by anything. He's seen a lot, and he really senses, he has the ability to sense. So he senses her powers, number one. And as a young lady, I mean, forget about the powers, how strong she is with her personality and just who she is and the traits and the way she comes across as a human being, which is completely like offsets him because he's so awkward in a sense where he doesn't really communicate with a lot of people. So when you have someone that's so powerful in both those realms, it's kind of, you know, like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? So for him, it's like, okay, do I take this step forward and you know, help this young lady? Because there's going to be a ton of people coming and trying to either manipulate or you know, steer into the wrong direction or God knows what. And that's a decision. It's a choice that has to be made. And I think it also relates to, you know, just people in people's lives when they have uncles and fathers and mentors who basically see potential in these in kids that kind of could be misdirected, and they have to step in and be like, okay, you know what, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go all out, and I'm gonna support you through everything. And that's kind of like what D is, I think, and Zimbabwe in a sense. We call them the two uncles on set.
Absolutely.
So, and they have different, you know, different styles. One wants to push, and one's like, look, I don't know. So, but it is a process of bringing the butterfly out of the cocoon and just letting her shine, you know, and that's what everyone really wants in this, who's in that position. One more thing that I'd love to add to this is that, you know, in these kind of situations with the heroes, and especially when they're young, a lot of the times the story just kind of goes by their development of who they are, and then what happens to them, and then what they do with their powers. It goes from like, okay, I'm this kid, I have powers, okay, let's use the powers. But it doesn't really deal with the struggle of balancing all that power and understanding how to use it, and really, you know, taking the responsibility of having such great, you know, power. So that's what I love about Jill's writing and the direction that all this is heading in, is that struggle of, look, I have all this power. What do I do with it? How do I control it? I think that's amazing, because I haven't really seen that in a lot of shows or even films.
Hi, everyone. Mercedes here with She Critiques in Atlanta. This question is for Kaci, Demain, and Jill. Speaking of like Naomi's development, I want to talk about the environment that we were seeing her in. So she has adoptive parents who look interracial. I don't want to assume, but look interracial. They sound super progressive when she brings up a girl liking her at school. They're all cool about it. She's a curious young Black woman and super smart, like this exceptional young Black woman. Can you talk about the environment that you put her in and why that was important? Was this intentional, all these different elements that you're adding?
Well, I kind of defer to Jill, because this goes back to sort of the canon and where she's from, but she's from Puerto Suego, which is in Oregon. It's the cultural makeup of the town is fairly white. What's wonderful about Naomi and also Kaci's portrayal is that she sort of brings all of these different types of people together. So every group in the school, which is a little bit of a melting pot, really appreciates her. The goth kids, the nerds, the jocks, and she doesn't have any real judgment about anybody. She sort of accepts them as they are and brings them together. And that's kind of what she does with all the characters as well. It's kind of interesting to see her bring different people who have landed in Puerto Suego together, who are loners. Some of them, she's kind of bringing them together with her on her journey. But Puerto Suego, would you say that that's accurate, Jill? That it's in Oregon and it's mostly white, and so yeah, they're a little bit of a standout there.
Yeah, that was definitely by design, and we loved this idea that Demain just said it beautifully. I'm not sure I could say it better, but the idea that she does, bring people together in this really wonderful way. She's worldly, she's traveled with her parents, they've been all over the world, but even in this sort of small town, she is able to sort of, when we meet her, as we kind of see like this party and stuff, she's able to sort of move between friend groups and really bring people together in a way that we often talked about is like kind of, even before she knows she's a superhero, a little bit of a superpower. It's just that Naomi meets you where you are and understands who you are and has this inherent sense of empathy that really allows her to sort of not only be able to fit in sort of in Puerto Suego, but again, in sort of her travels across the world.
To piggyback what Jill and Demain beautifully said, I totally agree that she always looks for the best in people, even if it's in her regular life or more in her hero life. She has a great deal of empathy. But I also think that she's an adopted kid, and she's also a military kid, so she's lived so many different places. And when I first heard that as an actor, I was like, oh, she's got to be able to move quickly, effortlessly with people. Like, you develop people skills when you move so much. So I think there's this one scene in the pilot where she's effortlessly going up to like every single group of people. And I think that even within this small town, and although some people, I think even it goes back to the way that she dresses, first of all. Some people in the town wear more basic clothing or what everyone else wears, but Naomi's going to wear what she wants to wear. She's always wearing some super cool Jordans or something like that. So I think that within this small town, she doesn't conform. I think that that's good.
And she skateboards, so that's cool too. Thank you.
Sharonda Williams, Pair Weight. I want to open this question up to this beautiful cast that we have. I know that we're supposed to be asking the right questions, but I need y'all to spill some tea for me. I need answers after watching the pilot. So I wanted to start this off with Kaci, but if you all can tell us, something that you're most excited about exploring with your character in season 1, or that you're most excited for the audience to learn about your characters, if you can share that with us, I would greatly appreciate it.
I think, can I say 2 things? I'm going to say 2 things because I'm just excited for like everything. So one thing I think that is really interesting with the show being a teenage show and that isn't in the comics is Naomi's love life. I think that that's really interesting, and that's an aspect that you don't see in the comics and will go throughout the show. I also think what's really interesting is like kind of what Alex said earlier, like the pressure. I think that that's super interesting, and I think that the audience will feel the difference between Naomi's home life and her hero life.
I would say, I think kind of going along to the first part of like, don't trust everything you believe. I think every character goes, for the audience, there is a revelation about every character that I feel is kind of monumental. And I think that's really fun how Jill develops that through the series. So that's what I'm most excited about. I think the idea of the don't trust everything you see, don't trust everything you hear is very much a strong theme throughout the show, where I feel like every character has a big important reveal for the audience to kind of really understand, oh, that's what they were going through, and that's what was really behind this. So I feel all the multi-layers that all the characters get to have, I think is one of my favorite things for the audience to discover.
I think for myself, first of all, I'm very excited about every single aspect of the show. I'm very excited for the world to see just our very, very talented cast. It's really a pleasure each time I get to work with each individual. I work with some more than others, but it's been just a great experience. And I think the show is perfectly cast, and I'm very excited about that.
So a lot of the times on set, we all, depending on who's working that day, we all sit there and be like, okay, what's going to happen? Who's doing what? Like, I don't, you know, and we're all freaking out or like, no, it's going to go this way. No, it's going to go this way. So we know, but we don't know, which is great because, you know, you live truthfully within that character. And as Kaci knows, and probably everybody else, I dive into the DC universe like wholeheartedly. I'm always like researching and flying through that universe and the multiverse and trying to find out stuff. But I'm really excited to see where Naomi's character goes, because I know she has no limitations when it comes to power as a superhero. So I'm really curious to see how far they take it and how much it's going to parallel to the Naomi of you know, in the comic book world, because she's super powerful. So that's really what I'm excited to see, and just to see her flourish and be in awe, because I think it's a beautiful thing.
Okay, Uncle, you better root for Naomi, and I'm also here for Naomi having all the booze. Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, it's Rhonda. This is for Jill and Demaine. I'm curious about, you know, taking it from comic book to the screen, and, you know, Jill in particular, what was important to you and Ava to, you know, carry over, and what to expand on, and Demaine, how, you know, to organize, you know, a group of people that are going to bring that vision to life.
Yeah, so, you know, this is actually my third DC property I've worked on. I worked on Arrow, and then I was able to work on Sweet Tooth, and now getting to work on Naomi. And I would say, first of all, you know, what I love so much generally about the world of comics is like there's really something for everyone, right? Like, and so each experience, just for me personally, I've been able to sort of explore new things and tell different stories. And I'll say, you know, I like fell in love with the Naomi comic like the second I read it. Like the second I read it on, like, I remember Ava sent it to me on like a Friday night. I was like, I'm gonna read it over the weekend. And I like sat down on Friday night and read the whole thing. I just like the world that they created, sort of, in this character that they created. I felt like she was so, like, she just jumped off the page, and she was so unique and so vibrant. So, you know, what we've done in the show is really, you know, sort of tried to take kind of the like lineage and the legacy of the comic and like tell our own story. And you know, one thing that's been so lovely in terms of you know, particularly Ava's collaboration with Brian Bendis and David Walker, is this idea that they really kind of gave her the blessing to sort of be like, tell your story. You know what I mean? Like, use this as a jumping off point and tell your story. And it was really lovely to be a part of kind of taking, like I said, this sort of foundation and really running with it and building off of it and exploring sort of even more about where Naomi was going to go this season.
I would just add to that I think what I love most about Jill's writing here is she's bringing together all of these different characters, and the characters work really well together. You're going to get the opportunity to see what it's like. What is it going to be like when that character talks to this character, and now this character knows that? Wait, how long did that character know that? So there's a wonderful world that's being created that these fine actors have brought to life, that just leaps off the page. I mean, I did the same thing when I found out that I was going to work on it. And I said to Jill, I should read the comic book, right? And she was like, oh yeah, read it. And I was just so engrossed in it. But then to land, be boots on the ground, and to see, okay, you're playing that one, you're playing that person. And I'm so excited for people to see where it goes and how these actors have really brought these characters to life.
If I could just add something really quickly in that and like bring it to life. I read the comic when I really sat down and read it when I first booked the show, but I always carry the comic with me. I always carry it in my bag, although it is an inspiration, almost like we were saying in the pilot that the comic is a big inspiration for the show. I always carry it with me so that I can be very careful, and it also allows me as an actor to feel more connected to the character. So I've read all the source material that she's in, but then I also allow myself to grow and add things and personal touches. So I always am very careful, and it's really cool to adapt a character from a book to screen.
Thank you. So excited for you, Kaci.
Jill talks about legacy, and then just now, Kaci, you're talking about how you do some type of adaptation, personal. So this question is for the cast. Who is your personal hero that you use to help you through this particular movie? I mean, project, excuse me, not movie.
I'm gonna go first for that one. My superhero is one of my superheroes is obviously Miss Ava DuVernay, and I use her all the time. Sometimes when I'm thinking about the character, you know, Miss Ava is alpha, Naomi is an alpha. So if you think about it like that, and she's always been one of my personal superheroes, so to work with her is great. But I definitely see so much of. I try and pull a little bit of Miss Ava into the character.
As playing a mom, and I think I definitely use both of my parents as inspiration, because Jennifer is, as was mentioned earlier, very open-minded, very progressive, and my parents had to get there. You know, it was a slower process for them. You know, the decisions in my life, and I was an immigrant, and they had to kind of really accept the fact that I'm an American, I'm going to make different choices as an American and not as an immigrant. So, and Jennifer wonderfully is already there. She's already progressive. She's already open-minded about, and really gives Naomi the space to be the teenager and gives her room to make mistakes and make her own choices and everything. And I feel like, my parents have been so supportive with my decisions, but it was a journey with them. And so I I assume Jennifer also went through that journey, but maybe she went through it earlier, and so that Naomi gets to benefit from her progressiveness. So I definitely use my parents as an inspiration of, you know, oh, she's already there. She's already there with her daughter as she makes these, like, oh, let's do it. Let's go for it. So that's who I use as my inspiration.
And for me, hands down, my superhero is my mom. I'm getting older. I'm an older gentleman now, but I'm still a mama's boy. I'll always be a mama's boy. And just everything that I do with my work, especially on this show, having such rich material to dig into and to personalize and parallel to different things, just seeing the journey that my mom has gone through, just, you know, peaks, valleys in life. She's just such an inspiration to me. She's always been there for me. So I want to honor her through my work, you know, on everything that I do. So she's my superhero, definitely.
And for me, my father. My father is a very quiet person. And for some reason, everyone always wants to go talk to him because he has some answer. He's the guy with the one-liners, you know. So I look up to him. He works hard, never complains, never says anything about, you know, just basically very good-hearted and always with the best intent. It's quite amazing. I mean, I hope one day to achieve that kind of, you know, just to be that humble and to be that gracious and good. So my father.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for honoring them too. I really appreciate that.
So my question is for the cast. So the thing about superhero stories is if you have a hero, you have a villain. And with regards, and especially with a character like Naomi, who is related in a sense to Superman, like we know that with Superman, he has like enemies both from Earth and from without. And I want to know about how you guys are approaching her own story as a hero, because she is going to eventually have to face an antagonist. Like, and I'm thinking some of that might come within her own friend group, because there's so many different personalities. Everyone is going to have their own agendas once they start discovering who she is and what she's capable of. And I can see particularly with Zumbada and Dee, like how they're going to have to like protect her as well as give her the space to become the hero she's destined to be. So can you just talk about the development of Naomi, the hero, as well as how that's going to affect her, the interpersonal relationships she's going to have with the people around her?
Okay, so I would say Naomi, you know, the show is not very villain of the week-esque. Like some superhero shows that are so great, but it's a little bit different than that. I think that we see throughout the show Naomi's balance of her life as a teenager versus her balance as a superhero and who is finding out what. So I think that although there are villains, I think she has great teachers who teach her how to deal with that. And she also has to learn for herself. She can't be told everything. She especially has to learn for herself, which is crucial in the show.
I can say along those lines, I think, Jennifer as the mom, there very much is a mama bear aspect that comes into when Naomi has to deal with all these forces that come at her. And I think Jennifer is always, in her ideal world, Naomi probably would have never discovered that she has powers, and she's, tucked away safely in her room upstairs, So, but as I've said before, each character has truths that's revealed to them, and Jennifer, I think, is very cautious about Naomi. So I think there's something about, no matter what Dean Zimbardo has, is doing for Naomi, there's an aspect of Jennifer that's like, but wait, is she ready? But are you sure she's ready? So I think that's what Jennifer is also trying to figure out, what is Naomi capable of and what is she actually ready for? So that's what Jennifer is dealing with and how she kind of approaches all this stuff.
Great. Thank you so much. And congratulations on the show and all of your amazing work. Thank you.
Hi, Dana Abercrombie from the Coalition again. My question is directed towards Alexander. I loved your character, and what was really interesting was you kept talking about your anxiety, which we were recently seeing people who are superpowered or with superheroes kind of deal with anxiety or any other real world issues like that. My question is, throughout the season, will we kind of can touch upon the anxiety part again? And now with your interactions with Naomi, will there be her being able to kind of pull you out of that quietness that's kind of exhibit in the first episode?
Well, there's a refinement in a sense, because essentially it's stated and it's said multiple times that they're barbarians. Thanagarians are not exactly, refined people. So by teaching Naomi and being with her and learning from, teaching her what she needs to learn through combat, he's becoming refined emotionally, because he's softening and opening up and having some sort of connection with a human being and a friend, which he doesn't really have because he's very lonely. So that anxiety aspect of it comes from literally being scared of caring about somebody and having responsibility for somebody. And you guys will see throughout as the episodes progress, because it does get hairy and it does get, you're going to be like, oh my God. Because I was like, oh my God, what is happening? What's going on? So there's going to be those moments, and it's great. It's fun.
Hello again. So this question is actually for Alex, Cranston, and Kaci. But I'll start with Alex. So you mentioned that you are a fan of the DC world and everything like that. How does it genuinely feel to be a super being within the DC universe? How does that feel? And is there anything in particular that you're excited for the fans to see?
It's honestly amazing. I mean, there's probably a couple of sightings in Atlanta with a guy walking around with some tattoos who looks menacing and in leather and boots, because that's literally what I do. I walk around in character. But it's great because it's like a different world, late night, it's like 2-3 in the morning. I'm in the multiverse. I'm just researching and diving into things. And because there's little Easter eggs and little crumbs that you can pick up that become huge things once you connect the dots through everything. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what Ava and Jill are going to be doing with this, like where he's going to go, because I just know he's got some cool wings and, he's got nice hair and, so it's going to be fun, man. But he's someone that we haven't seen, and it's very interesting.
I would say being a part of the DC universe is super cool. I mean, I watched like The Flash. Supergirl was like my favorite show in middle school. So it's super cool. And Alex does a lot of research. I know I'm a reader, but I wasn't super into comics before the show. So I always look up, like, if it's something DC related, even if it isn't my scene, my search history while we're shooting the show is like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? Like Mary Charles Jones, who plays Annabelle, makes fun of me all the time. But I just always like to respect the material and the source material. So it's such a dream. And, watching those movies and to be able to tell the character story and also a different narrative is really a blessing.
So I didn't grow up reading too much of comics or anything. I honestly didn't like to read very much until I started acting, and someone told me a good actor needs to be able to read very well. So that kind of inspired me to read. But being cast in this role and being in this DC universe and everything, to me, sometimes it's surreal. I just don't even believe it at times. I'll have these out of body experiences every once in a while. Maybe I'm working out, or maybe I'm about to walk the set and I'm like, my character's in a comic book. This is amazing. And I'm really grateful. And it's just very exciting to be able to, because I do know that comics are such a huge thing worldwide, and so many people, they're like, they're passed down generation to generation, and people are so excited about them. And to be able to be on such a unique show like Naomi, with a young Black teenager being the lead, and what that means to other people of color around the world, how inspirational that will be, and to be a part of that journey. Oh wow, it's just such a blessing. And it playing Zimbardo is fun. I enjoy it so much, and I enjoy working with my castmates, working with our producers, crew, just everybody. It's such a wonderful family, and I'm just so excited for you guys to see the work that we've been doing over the last 5 months or so. It's really an honor, and I'm thankful.
Kaci, I have a quick question for you. We got to talk about the booze again. I'm sorry, I just had to talk about it. But more importantly, I really love that we have a series that focuses on a Black woman, but also too that we get to explore her sexuality and that she feels so comfortable in it. And I wanted to talk to you and ask you the importance of being able to portray a character like that, and how much more will we be able to explore throughout the course of season 1?
So you got to talk about the booze again. No, I think that it is really great that Naomi is so comfortable within that. I think that I take very great care of that part of the story and that part of the character. So I think that representation is important. And I also think that it's so great that she's so comfortable but that she also doesn't define her sexuality. I think that is something that people have been doing for years, of course, but especially in this generation, there's not so much pressure to do that. And I think that is such a beautiful thing. And I think that I love how her parents, like that conversation almost feels like she's talking to her best friend, and it's just so comfortable the way that it should be. So I think that is one of my favorite aspects of the story. And I take great care of that, of course.
Hi, Kaci, Katia with you again. The thing what does it mean to you? Because I think, growing up, I love comic books, but I had to really search to see someone that looked like me as a teenager and as a mother of a daughter. I'm like, this is so amazing for young girls, that she is smart and so together, but still has flaws, and she's still discovering and trying to do things. What is it that you want or would like young girls to take away from Naomi?
I think first of all, I loved looking up to people that, looked like me when I was younger, but there wasn't ever really too many superheroes. There was like Halle Berry as like Catwoman, but I was also like, I didn't necessarily, that wasn't necessarily a reflection of me at like the age of 9. So it's so great to be in this space. But what I really hope that young girls, especially young Black girls, that they can see themselves in Naomi, because I think that there's so many things about her that I know as a young girl that I would see myself as in her. But I would also say that you are worthy and you have a greater destiny than you may think. And just to trust yourself and know that you are definitely enough. And although the outside voices say it, you feel it inside, and it's important that everyone does that, especially young Black girls.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, we thank you for your time. And we are really, really looking forward to watching this journey as it develops. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables.